So we have all been cooped up in our house for a really long time, and I have been trying to find things for the kids to do. So we decided to make ravioli. I'm going to make the dough, and then I'm going to call on my assistant Jonah to come help me roll it out. So first we're going to have the dough. I have 2 cups of all-purpose flour, and I have a teaspoon and a half of salt. I'm going to stir that together. And I'm going to make a well in the center, like a little hole. I'm going to drop in 3 large eggs. And then I'm going to break up the egg yolks and then stir. You want to make sure the egg yolks are broken up before you stir it into the flour. And lastly, I'm going to add 2 tablespoons of olive oil. If, as I'm mixing, this is too dry still and I can't get a dough to form, because it needs to form into one cohesive ball, then we have water over here to add half of a teaspoon at a time, until we can get it to form a ball. But first, we're going to try to form it with our hands. Spoons can only do so much for you. You see there's plenty of moisture in there once you get your hands in it. Alright, so once you get it into basically a ball, now we have to knead it, just like you would bread. We're going to put it on our tabletop. You want to activate the gluten in it, otherwise you can't roll it out properly and get pasta. So I'm going to knead it for just a couple of minutes. Make sure we get good consistency. And then we're going to wrap it in plastic wrap and let it sit for 30 minutes at least, and for up to 18 hours. I would suggest though that if you're going to let it sit for 18 hours that you put it in the refrigerator. If you're going to use it right away, you can leave it out on your countertop. Now I went reading all kinds of stuff about how to make ravioli, because that's my favorite kind of pasta. And I came across this woman who said you can roll it out on your own. Let me assure you, I cannot. If you can, way to go, and you've got better muscles than I do. I brought out my pasta roller, which used to be the fondant roller. It's really a pasta roller. But I'd never made pasta till this week. So, pasta in a nice little ball. Now I'm just going to take my cellophane, wrap it up on the counter, and we're going to let it sit for 30 minutes and then we'll come back. So our pasta dough has been resting for about 45 minutes, and now it's time to make our filling, and then we're going to roll it out. First thing I need to do is chop up some Italian parsley. Italian parsley is different from regular parsley. It has a different texture and a different flavor, and you can find it in the grocery store with the rest of the fresh spices. But I'm going to take the leaves off because that's really all I want. And then we are going to kind of roll them together and then chop them very finely. And then I go back over them just to make sure, because you want some finely diced, finely minced, really, Italian parsley. And we need about 2 tablespoons. So once again, I'm going to take it, roll it together. tiny as you can. Now you can use, if you can find dried Italian parsley, you can use it. Use half. Because if you'll remember, I've done this before, but dried spices have more flavor than fresh spices, so you need about half the amount. Okay? All right, now I have 2 pounds of ricotta cheese that has been drained. I'm going to add to that 3 eggs, a half of a cup of Parmesan cheese, grated Parmesan, and a half a cup of a shaved Parmesan, Asiago, and Romano blend. We're going to mix until that is all smooth. So once you get it mostly smooth, we're going to add our seasoning. So I have a 1/4 teaspoon of white pepper. I have a teaspoon of salt. And I have a 1/4 teaspoon of cinnamon. And the last thing we're going to add is our parsley. I've got about 3 tablespoons here, but I like the flavor of parsley. You can cut it back to whatever it is that you like, more or less depending on your own flavors. Now that the filling is done, we're going to set that aside and roll our pasta. All right, so I have my pasta. I also have my Jonah. For this part, you're going to need a little bit of extra flour to roll out the pasta. And then I'm going to take this and kind of divide it into fourths so that we don't try to roll too much at a time. So the first thing I'm going to do, cover it in flour and roll it out. And then I have a story to tell you. So we tried to do a dry run of making ravioli before we filmed it. And we discovered that my fabulous pasta rolling machine kept leaving the table. And so somebody had to hold it down, somebody else had to roll, and a third person had to feed the pasta through. Well, Jonah and I are only 2 people. So I enlisted the help of my husband, who built this contraption over here that is clamped down, but covered in saran wrap so that we don't get anything dirty. And there we have our pasta roller. So I'm going to start out on a 6. I'm going to make sure that I have plenty of flour on both sides so it doesn't get stuck in the machine. And this is a messy business, which is why we're both wearing aprons. So I'm going to step over here. Jonah, say hi, Jonah.
Hello.
Jonah is going to roll our pasta. And if you watch, he's going to feed it through the bottom. Don't pull on it. Just lightly guide it through. Okay? And we're going to come back over here. Make sure there's plenty of flour on both sides. I'm going to fold it in half and we're going to run it through again. It's okay. Okay, I'm going to make sure we have flour on both sides, and Jonah's going to change from the 6 to the 5. We went down to a 2 yesterday. We tried to go to a 1. It tore the pasta all kinds of apart, so we've decided 2 is where we're stopping. So we roll it through again. You got it? Good job. The important part is to always make sure that you have flour. If you do not have it covered in flour, what's going to happen is your pasta is going to get stuck in the machine and then it's going to tear. So I'm going to fold it in half again. We're going to run it through again. We do this 2 times on each number. Good job. All right. Flour. Fold in half. This time I'm doing it lengthwise instead of side by side so that it'll get wider. If it starts to become too wide in your pasta machine, then fold it in half this way. If it's not wide enough, fold it in half this way. Does that make sense? Did that make sense to you?
Yes.
Awesome. Okay, so this is our 2. This is our first sheet. I'm going to show you 2 different ways to make the ravioli. Actually, 3 different ways. The first one, I take my filling. I do 2 teaspoons of filling. And I keep going across, leaving space in between. I'm going to leave it at 3 this time. And then I have a whole egg and a teaspoon of water that we're going to whisk together to make an egg wash. I'm going to lightly brush it just around the filling. This will make sure that it stays together and that it doesn't come apart in the water when you boil them. It's like a little glue. Okay, I'm going to take this half, roll it over each filling, each piece of filling, and then I have this is a Pampered Chef cut and seal. So I'm going to go over the top, I'm going to cut it, press down the button to seal, and then I turn it to twist it off. And we have a perfect ravioli, which I'm going to set aside. Now, if you do not have this magical machine from Pampered Chef, I'm going to show you how to do that as well. Because not everybody has the tools I have. And I do recognize that. If you look, I've got 3 perfect ravioli just waiting to be boiled. But we're going to finish through the rest of our dough before we do that. I'm going to put that part of the dough aside, get another one of those fourths of dough, start anew, and we're going to roll through the machine. Same process as before. Awesome. That's okay. All right, so if you do not have the cut and seal, I'm going to show you what to do. First, you're going to cut a circle with a round cookie cutter or square if that's what you choose. Okay? You're going to do the same thing with the filling. It's 2 teaspoons. Okay? Then you'll cut another circle. There we go. Put it egg wash around the edge. Put your second circle on top of the first one. And then simply take a fork and press the 2 pieces together. All the way around. And there you are. Now the third way to do it I'm going to fold this in half. We're going to run it through on a number 2 again because we had some tears and we want to fix that. This is the third way to make pasta, to make ravioli anyway. I'm going to take my filling, put it down. Just like that. We're going to do the egg wash, just like we did before. Only this time, we're going to take that piece that we cut off half of and put it on top of our filling. And now we're going to cut. Seal. Oh, we need to do a little patchwork there. And if you see that there are holes, just make sure you put the fork in to make sure that you cover up that hole. Seal it up, just like that. And then just continue until you have used up all of your dough. Now, if you get to a point where you have too many tears, like we did, you can put it in the refrigerator, let it rest for about 15-20 minutes, and then go back to it. But it needs time, the dough needs time to rest. It's been worked way too hard. And then we'll finish rolling all these out, and then we'll come back and show you how to boil them. So I managed to roll out some more of the ravioli and make them. I got about 20 in total. And then I'm letting the dough rest. We'll make more tomorrow. I have a pot of water boiling with 3 tablespoons of salt and 2 tablespoons of olive oil. The olive oil is there to keep the pasta from sticking to each other. So it's going to keep them separate. Now I'm going to take these little raviolis and I'm going to drop them in my hot water, about 4 at a time. And they only take about 3 minutes to cook. And then we are going to pull them out and rest them on this paper towel lined plate so that they can get the excess water off. But first we've got about 3 minutes to wait. So if you notice in the pan they've all floated to the top. That is the sign that they are ready. So I'm going to pull them out one by one. And then drain them on this paper towel. And once you've cooked all your raviolis, you can top them with whatever sauce you want. One day, I will do a video and be able to show you my favorite sauce, which was made, excuse me, by my best friend and her mother. But for now, we're going to have to go with a jarred sauce. Don't tell her. So I took a regular jar of spaghetti sauce and added some Parmesan cheese, a little bit of oregano, and then my ground turkey meat. And then put it on top of my ravioli. And here we are, ready for dinner.